Welcome back to Deciphering Zodiac, a Chronicle of Terror, brought to you by History and Crime. In this 8th episode, titled The Presidio Heights Murder, let us delve deeper into the chilling narrative of the Zodiac Killer, focusing on the murder of cab driver Paul Stine, a crime initially overlooked as a Zodiac attack. On the night of October 11, 1969, in the upscale Presidio Heights neighborhood of San Francisco, cab driver Paul Stine picked up a passenger who requested to be driven to a destination on Washington Street. Upon reaching the destination, the passenger, in a chilling act of violence, shot Stine in the head at point-blank range, took his wallet and car keys, and tore away a part of Stine's blood-stained shirt. This brutal act turned an ordinary cab ride into a scene of horror. But who was Paul Stine, and what was his story? Paul Stine was a 29-year-old cab driver who had been working for the Yellow Cab Company for about 6 months. He was a college graduate who had majored in English and journalism. He had aspirations of becoming a writer and had written several short stories and poems. He was also a music lover who played the piano and the guitar. He was a friendly and helpful person who enjoyed meeting new people and making friends. He had a girlfriend who he planned to marry soon. Paul Stine had picked up his last fare of the night, a man who requested to be driven to the intersection of Washington and Maple Streets. This was a quiet and affluent area where many of the houses were worth over $1 million. The destination was a house at 3898 Washington Street, across from the Presidio, a former military base that had been converted into a park. The house was owned by a prominent attorney who was not at home at the time of the crime. However, little did Paul Stine know that his passenger was not a regular customer, but a cold-blooded killer. Someone who had a twisted and sinister agenda. Someone who would soon become known as the Zodiac Killer. But what clues or evidence did the killer leave behind at the scene? And how did they help or hinder the investigation? The killer left behind a sparse and confusing trail of clues and evidence at the scene, which only added to the mystery and complexity of the case. Some of the clues and evidence that were found were a bullet casing from a 9mm Luger pistol, which matched the weapon used in the previous attacks. This indicated that the same killer was responsible for all the attacks and that he had a preference for this type of gun. Bloodstains on the passenger seat and the floor of the cab, which confirmed that the killer had shot Stine from the back seat and had then leaned over to take his wallet and car keys. The bloodstains also showed that the killer had cut off a part of Stine's shirt, possibly as a souvenir or a proof of his crime. Fingerprints on the passenger door and the rearview mirror, which could have belonged to the killer or to Stine. However, the fingerprints were of poor quality and could not be positively identified or matched to any suspects. The fingerprints also contradicted the eyewitness descriptions of the killer, who was reported to have worn gloves. This raised questions about the reliability and accuracy of the fingerprints and the eyewitnesses. A pair of eyeglasses, which were found on the sidewalk near the crime scene. The eyeglasses were not Stine's and could have belonged to the killer or to a bystander. However, the eyeglasses did not match the eyewitness descriptions of the killer, who was reported to have not worn glasses. This added another layer of confusion and uncertainty to the case. These are just some of the clues and evidence that were found at the scene, but none of them were conclusive or definitive. The killer had left behind a puzzling and elusive trail, and the clues that were found only served to deepen the mystery. The investigators faced a daunting task as they tried to piece together the puzzle and catch the killer. That concludes episode 8 of our series. In our next episode, we will discuss the ongoing correspondence with the Zodiac, including his claims of a growing victim count. This will add another layer to this complex and horrifying narrative. Thank you for joining us on this chilling journey through the chronicle of the Zodiac Killer. Until next time, stay safe, keep the lights on, and continue to join us as we navigate the dark corridors of history and crime. Remember, in the words of George Santayana, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it.